The Tolkien Road, Episode 117, The Lord of the Rings, The Muster of Rohan.
All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolk
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we resume our journey through the Lord of the Rings with Book 5, Chapter 3, The Muster of Rohan. Before we get started, please head on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback. It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. You can also stop by TolkienRoad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad and on Twitter via @TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening, and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tolkien Road. John here. Greta.
Hey.
You're here too. What's up?
I am here. Yeah, not a ton. Just, chilling, keeping it real,
Nice.
How about you? What's up with you?
Nothing much. Having a nice little, relatively cool day here so far compared to what it normally is in Middle Tennessee.
In August, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I even thought about returning back around and getting my sweatshirt this morning.
Yeah.
So it was pleasantly cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a nice break, yeah.
Special thanks to our executive producers. You'll notice I said producers.
Laurel.
First of all, Dr. William Hutton.
Dr. Hutton.
Who has been an executive producer for some time now. And we have a new executive producer.
Yay!
Justine Lloyd, who, surprise, we just heard from her for the first time yesterday.
Yes.
Along with a
Very nice
pledge
note.
of $20 per month. Which makes her an executive producer.
That's awesome.
So
Thank
Justine,
you, Justine,
it's so nice to meet you. I wanted to take a moment to read the note she sent us because I thought this was really cool. She says, "Greetings, Carswells from Philadelphia. My name is Justine Lloyd, and I've been listening to your podcast for the past few months. You've been helping me through a rough period in my life. I had recently started a new job working the night shift, and I developed at least one sleep disorder. As a result, I would fall asleep at my desk and sometimes behind the wheel. I tried everything to wake me up, and nothing was working until I found your podcast." Wow.
That's awesome.
It is pretty awesome. I'm able to have headphones on while I work every night, and I had the idea to try to find a Tolkien podcast, and the Tolkien Road was the first one that came up. It is now my favorite podcast. You two are funny and adorable together. You put a religious spin on your analyses of the books that would make Tolkien proud. As a big thank you for doing the impossible by keeping me awake every night, I intend to become a patron. I'm also very eager to buy Tolkien's Requiem. I'm always excited to expand my already large Tolkien collection. Now that I'm all caught up on every episode you've made so far, I'm sad to only hear from you guys once a week instead of every night. I'll have to find another podcast to keep me up, but the Tolkien Road will always be my favorite. Wow,
Yay.
Justine, thank you so much for all the kind things you said, and it's really wonderful and rewarding to hear that we kind of filled that place in your life, helped you through a difficult time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's incredible to hear.
It really is. It really, really is. And, not that what we do here is, sometimes when you're doing something over and over and you're kind of just sitting in your little part of the world, just spitballing about whatever, it's nice to be reminded that what you're doing is meaningful.
Yes.
Not that we think it's not meaningful, because obviously if we didn't think it was meaningful, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
But it's so great to know that there's other people out there that are appreciating what we do.
Yeah.
And that's making a difference in their lives.
Absolutely. From the very beginning, I've had this mindset that whether anybody listens or responds or not, I want to do this because I love Tolkien that much, and it would have been hard going to keep doing it, but I still was just kind of resolved to do this chapter by chapter walkthrough of Tolkien's works, and
yes,
because I knew there would be some people that would listen, even if it was just a handful of folks, and appreciated it, and we were able to have that. But to get notes like this one from Justine, it just makes it just, like we said before, it puts the wind in our sails.
Yeah.
This one's really special because it's not just I love your episode, or I love your podcast, and it's so much fun listening to it, but it's played an important part in a difficult time in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get any more rewarding than that.
That's pretty amazing.
But to top it all off, Justine decided to become a patron, and not just a patron, but an executive producer. So
yeah.
we thank you so much, Justine.
Yes,
We're honored,
Justine.
By your patronage, and
very much so.
And just by your kind words, and maybe one of these days we'll get to a point where we can do this on a more frequent basis. It's hard. It's hard right now to do it any more than the frequency that we do. We got a lot going on in our lives, and it's a significant investment of time. It's a labor of love, but it's still a significant investment of time.
Yes.
But it would be wonderful maybe to be able to do it
more frequently.
To find a way.
Yeah.
To do that.
Absolutely.
So
Especially when we get notes like this.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
Like, dang.
Yeah. Now I'm like, well,
bit of
how do we do
charge.
this? How do we do this for Justine?
Yeah.
Almost like special Justine. We need to record special Justine episodes. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you so much.
Yes, many thanks.
And we look forward to continuing to hear from you over time, Justine. It's just a pleasure to hear from you.
Indeed.
If anyone else listening would like to contribute to the Tolkien Road, if you'd like to become a patron, just visit us on Patreon at patreon.com/TolkienRoad. You can also just go to tolkienroad.com, and it'll have a link there to our Patreon site, so where you can learn more. So
Indeed.
There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can get over there, and and hey, we've been doing this Patreon thing for about 7 months now, and it's going well. I would love to hear from people, patrons and otherwise, about what other content we could be doing over there. What are the things we could be doing that would really make the Patreon thing even more alluring? Because, we love Tolkien. Mm-hmm. We love doing the podcast, and it would be great to just be able to do more and more of it.
Yes. Yeah.
If we could manage it. So.
Absolutely.
Anyway, just spitballing. If you have ideas,
That's
send
exactly
them my
what
way.
I was going to say. I was like, man, John, you're on a real spitball thing. What was I going to say? A spitball...
Spitball-a-thon?
What's the right word? Spitball-a-thon, that's good. Yeah.
Cool.
It's like a avalanche, spitball avalanche. That's what I was trying to think
That's
of.
really gross to think about.
That's really gross to think about. Guys, I'm sorry. Yikes. Okay. Let's reel this in, Johnny.
All right, reel this in. Yeah. Okay. So, book drawing. We need to do a book drawing for August.
Oh, yeah.
We're for a while we fell behind on all of our Patreon stuff, and now we're pretty much caught up. So we have a new special. We're gonna have a new special monthly Patreon episode coming out today for all of our patrons over at patreon.com/TolkienRoad, and then we're going to have our book drawing for August.
Sounds good.
So our rule, of course, is that if you won in the past 12 months, you can't win again. So far, we've had Margaret Lyon, Brian Orr, Emilio Perea, Caleb Santana, James Applegate, Caitlin Fascista, and Chris Loftus win. So we have 10 people right now who are eligible, including Justine.
Yep.
So here we go. Hey Siri, pick a number between 1 and 10.
Random number between 1 and 10 is 5.
Number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zeke Farmer.
Zeke Farmer.
Zeke, you are a lucky winner for August.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations indeed. And I'll be reaching out to you to see what you would like. So,
wonderful.
if you would like to be part of the monthly drawing, just head on over to Patreon.
That's right.
That's the way we do it.
Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, secret word.
Right.
We did not have any guessers on last time's secret word.
The word.
I guess it was just a really difficult secret word.
Well, I think, and this is coming from the chooser of the secret word, Matt, and also patron, Matt Scarens. He sent in a note and complimented us on how well we used the secret word, and said that even he forgot that it was the secret word, because apparently we used it so well, so seamlessly.
Yeah.
So we'll keep using it.
Yeah, well, and it was a secret word that kind of gelled well with the
It
episode.
did
It wasn't
gel
like
well.
it wasn't like we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to say aardvark or something.
Right.
It was
Right.
it was not obvious.
Right.
It was not an obvious secret word. So
Right.
yeah, Matt chose well.
Indeed.
It did not stick out like the proverbial black squirrel.
Won't this be like the third time we've used it? Or
Maybe.
did we forget to use it the first time? I think we forgot to use it I don't know.
Yeah, I think we did forget to use it the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess this is officially the second time we've used it. Or consciously.
I believe so.
This will be the second
Yeah.
time we've consciously used it. Okay.
And who knows, maybe we'll just keep going till Kingdom Come with the same
Maybe,
secret word.
and maybe we will.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's kind of funny. I don't see a chapter coming in the near future that it's not going to be a good fit.
True.
So
It's kind of a word that fits well in Middle Earth.
it does fit well in Middle Earth because it describes most of the peoples,
Yeah.
a trait of most of
Yes.
the peoples.
It's kind of a cultural trait.
It is a cultural trait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
So put on your extra special listening ears, guys, and see if you can guess it.
Where do I get some of those?
Extra special listening ears. I think they're, you can get anything on Amazon.
Yeah.
So that'd probably be the first place I'd look.
Amazon.
After that, I'm not sure. Maybe a hearing aid store.
Okay.
So, if you got them, put them on.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
All right.
And listen good.
That's right.
So that, we can eventually use a different secret word.
All right, party on.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Party on.
Book 5, Chapter 3.
Woo,
The
finally.
Muster.
All right.
The Muster of Rohan.
Muster. That's a great word.
For a moment, every once in a while, I just think to myself, the Mustard of Rohan.
I was just going to
And
mention something about mustard.
I love mustard.
I know you do. And you know what? I like mustard too. But not as much as you do.
Yeah.
I do sometimes like ketchup.
I like mustard so much that I hate ketchup.
Yeah. You and one
Because
of
I'm
our
like,
kids.
mustard or ketchup, get off the mustard's back.
Isn't that so funny? Out of our 3 kids, we have one that loves mustard and hates ketchup, one that loves ketchup and hates mustard, and one that likes them both equally.
Yes.
It's kind of funny how that worked out. But you're very picky about your mustard.
Well, yes.
You not a big fan of French's.
Well, I mean, sometimes like on a hot dog, French's goes well. Like
Yes.
just your all-American kind of
Yeah.
hot dog at the ballpark,
Right.
putting some
True.
straight up yellow French's mustard on there.
Yeah.
Hard to beat that. Sometimes that just hits the spot. But I'm normally a Dijon mustard kind of guy.
Yes.
I will at most restaurants I will ask for Dijon
Yes.
mustard, and I usually send the waiter or waitress kind of scratching their head like, I think we have Dijon mustard.
Right.
Let me go check.
And if they bring you back something other than Dijon mustard, you throw it in their face.
That's right.
And stomp out of the restaurant.
That's right. And I don't give them a tip.
Nope.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes
That's how much I love mustard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mustard is, and it's great. There's all different, that's one of my favorite things about St. Patrick's Day,
Mm-hmm.
is
Yes.
traditionally corned beef
Mhm.
is what we have. And my favorite thing about corned beef is serving it with various mustards.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different mustards out there. You got the whole grain mustards that actually have the mustard seeds in them. You have honey mustards. You
Mhm.
have horseradish mustards. I wonder if they're Rohirrim like mustard. Do you think they had mustard in Middle Earth?
Well, obviously there's a chapter called the Mustard of Rohan. I was thinking it's not a very it's not a
that sounds like a Saturday
when
Night
we're
Live
at those
skit.
restaurants and I throw the mustard back in the waiter's face.
Mhm.
That's not a very chivalrous thing to do.
No, it's not. It's actually really not.
Yeah.
I think maybe you should work on being on growing in chivalry.
Growing in chivalry.
Especially when people bring you non-Dijon mustard.
Yes, true.
Because I know that's a difficult thing to be chivalrous when you don't get what you want when it comes to mustard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you think Mustard of the Rohirrim sounds like it should be like a Saturday Night Live skit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do it. Make it happen.
All right, I'll get on it right away.
Good.
I'll contact my inside guy at NBC.
Yeah, just wait till the podcast's over.
Okay.
I don't want you distracted.
Okay.
All right.
All right, fine. I'll do that.
So, Book 5, Chapter 3, The Muster of Rohan.
Yep.
So, we've got... We start off, and the last, our last chapter was the passing of the Grey Company, where Aragorn leads a small band of folks, including Legolas and Gimli, into the Pass of the Dead.
Right.
Okay? But now we go back to the north side of the White Mountains, to where the Rohirrim are. And
Right.
Merry is the only one of the Fellowship that's still with the Rohirrim.
This chapter made me feel really bad for Mary.
I know, Merry, it's kind of like Bummersville for Merry.
Total Bummersville.
So...
it makes, seriously, I'm like tearing up thinking about Mary right now.
Poor little Mary. So, it starts off like this. Now all roads were running together to the east to meet the coming of war and the onset of the shadow. And even as Pippin stood at the great gate of the city and saw the prince of Dol Amroth ride in with his banners, the king of Rohan came down out of the hills. So, we're kind of pinpointing there's really four different actions going on at the same time in the story now. You've got Frodo and Sam, who we haven't heard from in a few chapters now.
On the way to Mordor with Gollum.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when we last left off with them, they were at the pass of Cirith Ungol, and Frodo had been stung.
Oh, by Ungoliant.
And taken off by the orcs, and then Sam was trying to find him.
That's
Gollum,
right.
we don't know what happened to
That's
Gollum.
That's right.
And then Gandalf took Pippin to Minas Tirith.
Right.
And then Aragorn goes to the Pass of the Dead with Legolas and Gimli.
Right.
So
Right.
Merry is with the Rohirrim, and to be fair, it's not like the Rohirrim are just like get lost little hobbit. We don't want anything to do with you. They're trying to include him, but still he feels out of place.
Yes. Sure.
And
he's lonely. He
absolutely,
misses his friends.
absolutely. So it says a little further on. It says Merry looked out in wonder upon this strange country, of which he had heard many tales upon their long road. It was a skyless world in which his eye, through dim gulfs of shadowy air, saw only ever-mounting slopes, great walls of stone behind great walls, and frowning precipices wreathed with mist. He sat for a moment half dreaming, listening to the noise of water, the whisper of dark trees, the crack of stone, and the vast waiting silence that brooded behind all sound. He loved mountains, or he had loved the thought of them marching on the edge of stories brought from far away. But now he was borne down by the insupportable weight of Middle-earth. He longed to shut out the immensity in a quiet room by a fire. He was very tired, for though they had ridden slowly, they had ridden with very little rest. Hour after hour, for nearly 3 weary days, he had jogged up and down over passes and through long dales, and across many streams. Sometimes, where the way was broader, he had ridden at the king's side, not noticing that many of the riders smiled to see the two together. The hobbit on his little shaggy grey pony, and the Lord of Rohan on his great white horse. Then he had talked to Theoden, telling him about his home and the doings of the Shire folk, or listening in turn to tales of the Mark and its mighty might of old. But most of the time, especially on the last day, Merry had ridden by himself just behind the king, saying nothing, and trying to understand the slow, sonorous speech of Rohan that he heard the men behind him using. It was a language in which there seemed to be many words that he knew, though spoken more richly and strongly than in the Shire, yet he could not piece the words together. At times some rider would lift up his clear voice in stirring song, and Merry felt his heart leap, though he did not know what it was about. All the same he had been lonely, and never more so now than at the day's end. He wondered where in all this strange world Pippin had got to, and what would become of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. Then suddenly, like a cold touch on his heart, he thought of Frodo and Sam. "I am forgetting them," he said to himself reproachfully, "and yet they are more important than all the rest of us. And I came to help them, but now they must be hundreds of miles away, if they are still alive." He shivered. So, we have two things here. We have Merry and what's going on internally for him. His loneliness, his weariness. And then we have this kind of interesting sort of mountain foothill landscape that he's in right now. He's riding through with the Rohirrim, with Theoden's band.
Right.
So, in this place, even though it says Merry that had always loved kind of the thought of the mountains, now he realizes it's just like, and I think he still recognizes the beauty of the place, but he he really would like to be back inside a house in a warm fire thinking about these things rather than out in the middle of all this, right? He's grown weary and lonely, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He feels very small in a big, wide open, scary world.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the description, and as I read this through this chapter again, you know, the first time through before I really took notes on it, I was trying to think where are they and why are they going this way? So, and I kind of figured it out. They're in this like mountain, sort of foothill of the mountains pass that they're riding through from. I think they had come back to Helm's Deep, and they're kind of trailing behind where Aragorn had gone, right? And they're about to catch up to where he entered the Paths of the Dead.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they haven't arrived at Edoras yet.
Right.
But they're not really riding through like the open fields of Rohan, right? They're riding through like the kind of these mountainish area.
Right. Yeah.
And there's some very beautiful, you know, you've been in mountains where you'll come into the mountain, you'll see kind of an open field within the mountain range. Right.
Yeah. But there's mountains on either side.
That's be very beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So part of me reads this and I'm like, well, Mary, at least you're in a beautiful place. At least you're not like riding through some like, you know,
at least
ugly.
you're not on the Path of the Dead with Aragorn.
Well, yeah, at least you're not riding through some ugly place.
Right.
So, yeah, we've got that, and you know, but all the same, Mary is unhappy. Yeah. You know, he's just he doesn't know what's going to become of all this. He doesn't know if he's going to see his friends again. Yeah. And of course, he realizes that Frodo and Sam. He's just wondering, like, what part have I to play in any of this anymore?
Yeah, I'm sure he's feeling very, like almost without purpose. You know. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's despairing. Right. Yet, but I think he's probably close. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, the Rohirrim are coming this way because, and I couldn't remember this during the chapter, but then I went back and was kind of planning for this episode, and I realized, oh, I know why they're going this way, because they told Éowyn and all of the people to go up into the mountains. Right. They told them not to stay in Edoras.
Yeah.
Right. Well, not to meet them in Edoras, but that they would go up. Remember when they left for Helm's Deep, they told her to take the people up into the mountains.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But then they told her that they would come back that way, right?
Right.
After the battle.
After the battle.
Yeah. After the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're coming back, and they're going to meet them, but not at Edoras. They're meeting them near the Paths of the Dead, like up in the Dunharrow, right? So they're still up in the Éowyn and the women and children are up in the mountains area.
In Edoras.
No, not in Edoras. Edoras is out. That's the thing. Like, that's what I'm saying.
I thought that's where they were supposed to hide.
Edoras is the city, right? It's the capital of Rohan.
Oh, oops. Okay.
Yeah, it's that. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
No. I need to be kept straight. It's very chivalrous of you to keep me straight.
It's confusing because it's never, you know, Tolkien writes in such a way that sometimes you can miss these things. You can wonder, like, why are they here? Like, what are they? You know, what are they doing? Because he does. Sometimes he doesn't speak directly as to what's going on. You have to kind of pause a moment and get your bearings.
Right.
And so Edoras is really, you know, down in the below the mountains, right? Not even in the foothills. It's on the edge of the mountains, right? But it's not on the edge of the foothills, but not actually in them. It's kind of in that open, more plains, kind of rolling plains area.
Okay. Yes.
But they're up here in the Dunharrow, right? Which is up in the foothills of the mountains, just beneath the Starkhorn, which is the big mountain peak
is
that they
mentioned
can see.
In this chapter.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and by the way, if you really want to see how this is laid out, again, I'll plug the Atlas of Middle Earth by Karen Wynne Fonstad, which you can get on Amazon. And this is a great resource. I do wish it was a little more colorful, and sometimes the maps can be a little hard to read at first, but it is once you understand it, it can be very useful in seeing this. But basically, you know, they've been coming this way, and then they are right.
Yes. Okay.
So they've been coming this way to meet in this. The Eowyn had taken the people up into the Dunharrow, right up into this area in the mountains, and that's actually where you do enter the Pass of the Dead, right behind the Dunharrow. But they didn't go in there.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why they're heading up to this place and not immediately to Edoras.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So just so that's clear. All right.
It's clear.
Okay. That's why they're climbing up into this mountainish area. So, all right.
Moving
on. I do think it was interesting that Éomer briefly counsels Theoden not to go to war.
Yeah. And then Theoden calls him Wormtongue. It's almost like the "Get Behind Me, Satan."
I know, yeah.
Right? From
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
All right. So we meet up with they meet up with the with some folks at Harrowdale, with Dunhair, chieftain of the folk of Harrowdale. At dawn 3 days ago, Lord, he said, Shadowfax came like a wind out of the west to Edoras, and Gandalf brought tidings of your victory to gladden our hearts. But he brought also word from you to hasten the gathering of the riders. And then came the winged shadow. The winged shadow, said Theoden. We saw it also, but that was in the dead of the night before Gandalf left us. Maybe, Lord, yet the same, or another like it, a flying darkness in the shape of a monstrous bird, passed over Edoras that morning, and all men were shaken with fear. For it stooped upon Meduseld, and as it came low, almost to the gable, there came a cry that stopped our hearts. Then it was that Gandalf counselled us not to assemble in the fields, but to meet you here in the valley under the mountains. And he bade us to kindle no more lights or fires than barest need asked. So it has been done. Gandalf spoke with great authority. We trust that it is as you would wish. Naught has been seen in Harrowdale of these evil things. It is well, said Theoden. I will ride now to the hold, and there, before I go to rest, I will meet the marshals and captains. Let them come to me as soon as may be. So, as I read that, I realize, too, that's probably part of it why they're meeting up in the mountains, is because of the Black Rider that had come a few days before upon the black... What is the thing called?
Nazgul?
Well, the Nazgul, but that's the Black Rider. Right, I don't know, just they're flying beast, flying dragon thing. Let me see here.
Is it kind of like a descendant of the Balrog?
I feel like a total doofus for not being able to tell you what the thing is called, but we'll see.
So it's not a Nazgul?
Well, the Nazgul are the Black Riders.
Right.
The ring wraiths.
So what is this?
So the thing that it rides upon, right? The Black Rider rides upon a... they appeared later mounted on flying creatures. The fell beasts, hellhawks, or Nazgul birds. So yeah, they don't really have a better name than that.
Birds.
It's kind of funny that Tolkien never gave these things a name, like a really official name.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
But hellhawks, I kind of like hellhawks.
Oh yeah, that seems very appropriate. Fell beasts, hellhawks.
Right.
So I have a quick little funny side note here.
Yeah.
He started talking about, Shadowfax and this event of Gandalf coming. And I'm listening to you. I'm like, I don't remember reading this. I just read this. How could I not read this? And then I looked at it, and I'm scanning over it. I'm like, I definitely didn't read this, but I read the chapter. And I realized what happened. You know what happened?
What?
2 of my pages stuck together.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, how did that make sense?
Yeah.
Because usually if you miss a page, you start reading, you're like, wait, that doesn't work.
Right.
But I looked back and listen to this. The way I have, the mass market paperback, right?
Yeah.
And so it says, the end of page 57 of my copy, it says, there he found the remaining strength of his people already assembled. For as soon as his coming was known, captains rode, and then even with my pages stuck together, captains rode under Dwimmerberg, and the menace of the pillar of stone and the yawning shadow of the forbidden door. So it worked, and I was like, okay.
Well,
so anyway,
isn't that interesting?
I might not be very productive in the next couple minutes of discussion because I didn't read these 2 pages.
Oh, that's funky.
That is funky. Well, I mean, maybe if I'd been more of a Tolkien nerd, I would have been like, wait, I missed something there. That doesn't flow. But to me, reading it flowed. So I just kept going.
No, I think I probably would have too, honestly.
As soon as his coming was known, captains rode under Dwimmerberg. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have done the same. I probably would not have noticed, honestly.
Well, that makes me feel better.
No, I mean,
Because I was looking at your notes for the show, and it says something about White Rider, Black Rider, and then and I was like, what the heck? Where? That doesn't even mention the White Rider in here. Anyway, so you're going to need to carry the conversation for the next few minutes.
Oh, well, I don't know that there's a ton to cover in those 2 pages that you missed.
Are you saying I didn't miss too much?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Did you get to the Pukelman?
No, I missed the Pukelman, too.
You missed the Pukelman?
I did miss the Pukelman.
All right, so...
Because I saw that in your notes, too. I'm like, the what?
All right, well, so why don't you go through and read? So Mary wondered. So we've got the White Rider and the Black Rider, and then we come to, as they're coming up into the Dunharrow,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see.
into the Fury Enfield,
yeah.
to muster everybody, we have this discussion of the Pukelman and the Fury Enfield. So do you see that? Mary wondered how many riders there were.
Right. So basically, I'm sorry, just to cap what I missed, just to make sure it's straight in my head. So he's just basically, who's telling him? Oh, the chieftain of Harrowdale is telling Theoden about Gandalf and Shadowfax coming.
Right.
And then he's telling them that the Winged Shadow made an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
The same one that Theoden saw.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, gotcha. So they're just kind of comparing notes. Like
right.
Catching up on events of the past. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, here we go. Mary wondered how many riders there were. He could not guess their number in the gathering gloom, but it looked to him like a great army, many thousands strong. While he was peering from side to side, the king's party came up under the looming cliff on the eastern side of the valley, and there suddenly the path began to climb, and Mary looked up in amazement. He was on a road, the like of which he had never seen before, a great work of men's hands and years beyond the reach of song. Upwards it wound, coiling like a snake, boring its way across the sheer slope of rock. Steep as a stair, it looped backwards and forwards as it climbed. Up it, horses could walk, and wains could be slowly hauled. But no enemy could come that way except out of the air, if it was defended from above. At each turn of the road, there were great standing stones that had been carved in the likeness of men, huge and clumsy limbed, squatting cross-legged, with their stumpy arms folded on fat bellies. Some in the wearing of the years had lost all features save the dark holes of their eyes that still stared sadly at the passers-by. The riders hardly glanced at them. The Pukelmen, they called them, and heeded them little. No power or terror was left in them, but Mary gazed at them with wonder and a feeling almost of pity as they loomed up mournfully in the dusk. After a while, he looked back and found that he had already climbed some hundreds of feet above the valley, but still far below he could dimly see a winding line of riders crossing the ford and filing along the road towards the camp prepared for them. Only the king and his guard were going up into the hold.
Yeah. So we've got this, this place they're going up to, this Fury Enfield. It says, at last the king's company came to a sharp brink, and the climbing road passed into a cutting between walls of rock, and so went up a sharp slope and out on a wide upland. The Fury Enfield, men called it, a green mountain field of grass and heath, high above the deep delved courses of the snowborn, laid upon the lap of the great mountains behind. So this is their destination, the Dunharrow, the Fury Enfield, the work of long forgotten men. So they're basically coming to this place that the Oathbreakers, who had created, that Aragorn was going to see. This is something that kind of comes from them, that even precedes the Rohirrim. Right? Okay. So this is not something that belongs to the culture of the Rohirrim per se. Okay. This was something that was created by these Oathbreakers. All right, from some time before. And these Pukelmen are the same thing. I was reading about the name Pukelmen here and on Tolkien Gateway, and it says the word Pukel in Old English means little goblin. The element Puk, goblin, is related to the name Puck and the modern English word pug. So these are like goblin men statues, I guess you could say, or little men statues. But
so they're actually carved out of stone.
Right.
It's not like, okay. I was wondering if it was more like a Pompeii thing, where they had been turned to.
Oh no! These are
mummified.
I believe these are statues. Okay. I didn't get that impression at all.
Okay. Well, I was just looking at the picture you had pulled up, and I was like.
Yeah, you're kind of thinking like, what were they like? Why did they build these things? Because they don't have like that imperious like we're guarding this. They don't have that imperious sort of like we're great men of Numenor sort of feel to them. We're great warriors. In the description, they almost sound like they're almost like not gargoyles, but
Similar
in a way.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Yeah.
like these weird man-shaped
Yeah.
creatures that have some purpose, like some intimidation purpose, or do they have some other purpose? You know, and for the Rohirrim, they don't know.
Right.
You know, again, this is one of those things that Tolkien puts in there that he probably knows the whole history of them, or at
Right.
least has an idea of what it is, and you know, was like, oh, one of these days I'll write about where the Pukelman came from, but in the story, it just increases that sense of reality.
Right.
The
It's just one of the little
verisimilitude.
details that serves to make the reality that much real.
Yeah, you're just walking through the country somewhere, and you come upon something, and you're like,
Like Mount Rushmore.
well, no, not Mount. I was not thinking Mount Rushmore. I was just thinking like
Oh.
if you were taking a hike somewhere, and because you know where Mount Rushmore came from.
Well, yeah.
If you're taking a hike somewhere and you just come across some like random man-made structure in the middle of nowhere that you didn't expect to see, then that's, you know, you're like, wow, I wonder what the history of that thing is. I wonder where it came from. You know, somebody at some point built that thing.
Right.
And now it just seems like this random object, curious object, but somebody at some point, you know, had built that thing.
For a
So,
purpose.
yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just don't know what it is. So
Yeah.
do the Pukelmen here, does it serve much purpose? Or is it just kind of like a, you know, just like you said, just serves to enhance the reality?
Well, a little bit later it says, Mary stared at the lines of marching stones. They were worn and black. Some were leaning, some were fallen, some cracked or broken. They looked like rows of old and hungry teeth. He wondered what they could be, and he hoped that the king was not going to follow them into the darkness beyond. Then he saw that there were clusters of tents and booths on either side of the stony way, but they were not set near the trees and seemed rather to huddle away from them towards the brink of the cliff. The greater number were on the right, where the Fury Enfield was wider, and on the left there was a smaller camp, in the midst of which stood a tall pavilion. From this side a rider now came out to meet them, and they turned from the road. So, you know, no one's really clear on where these things did come from, and what purpose they served, or any of that. You know, we don't really find out about that anywhere in the chapter.
Interesting.
Just speculation, but they do seem to be associated with the Paths of the Dead, right? With this culture that was there before the Rohirrim.
Gotcha.
So,
Interesting little note.
Yeah, well, so the next couple of pages deal with the Paths of the Dead and the discussion thereof, because they come upon Éowyn.
Yes. Éowyn.
And Éowyn, of course, says that Aragorn is gone.
Right.
It's gone to the Paths of the Dead.
And Mary can tell that she's pretty torn up.
That's right.
She's very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's trying to put on a brave face, but he can see through it.
Yeah, and Éomer even, I mean, he says, when he finds out Aragorn went to the Paths of the Dead, he says he is lost. We must ride without him, and our hope dwindles.
Yeah.
So Éomer just assumes that, and they're all like wondering, like, why in the world did he do that?
Yeah.
You know, I thought Aragorn was smart.
What did he just give up?
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Why in the world would he go into the Paths of the Dead?
Why would chivalrous Aragorn make an act of such blatant non-chivalry?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, we've got this little bit, the Paths of the Dead, he muttered to himself, and I think that is Mary muttering to himself. The Paths of the Dead? What does all this mean? They have all left me now. They have all gone to some doom. Gandalf and Pippin to war in the east, and Sam and Frodo to Mordor, and Strider and Legolas and Gimli to the Paths of the Dead. But my turn will come soon enough, I suppose. I wonder what they are all talking about, and what the king means to do. For I must go where he goes now. So, Mary eventually gets the courage to ask Theoden about the Paths of the Dead. Mm-hmm. And Theoden
doesn't answer.
Well, Theoden doesn't know a lot, like, about, except what has come down to him in legend. He says, "We do not know, and our hearts are heavy. But as for the Paths of the Dead, you have yourself walked on their first steps. Nay, I speak no word of ill omen. The road that we have climbed is the approach to the door, yonder in the dim hold. But what lies beyond, no man knows." And then he tells this really interesting legend. You want to read that? No, he says, "No man knows."
That was Éomer that said that.
Was that Éomer?
Yeah, it was Éomer.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then Theoden says, "No man knows, yet ancient legend, now seldom spoken, has somewhat to report. If these old tales speak true, that have come down from father to son in the house of Errol, then the door under Duimorberg leads to a secret way that goes beneath the mountain to some forgotten end. But none have ever ventured in to search its secrets since Baldor, son of Brego, passed the door and was never seen among men again. A rash vow he spoke as he drained the horn at that feast which Brego made to hallow new-built
Meduseld.
And he came never to the high seat of which he was the heir. Folk say that dead men out of the dark years guard the way and will suffer no living man to come to their hidden halls. But at whiles they may themselves be seen passing out of the door like shadows and down the stony road. Then the people of Harrowdale shut fast their doors and shroud their windows and are afraid. But the dead come seldom forth, and only at times of great unquiet and coming death. Yes, it is said in Harrowdale, said Eowyn in a low voice, that in the moonless nights, but little while ago, a great host in strange array passed by. Whence they came none knew, but they went up the stony road and vanished into the hill, as if they went to keep a tryst. Then why has Aragorn gone that way? Asked Merry. Don't you know anything that would explain it? Unless he has spoken words to you as his friend that we have not heard, said Eomer, none now in the land of the living can tell his purpose.
Yeah. And then, so we have the legend of Brego of Baldor, who passed the door and was never seen among men again. A rash vow he spoke as he drained the horn at that feast which Brego made to hallow new-built Meduseld, and he came never to the high seat of which he was the heir.
Do you think that's the skeleton they came across that we read about in the last chapter, or do you think that was somebody else?
Maybe.
Could be.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. That could very well be who that was.
Because they don't know of anybody else. I mean, not that they would know of everyone that went that way, but...
Right. So we have that story. Good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did not make that connection.
Oh, thanks.
And then you have what follows a little bit after what we just read, where it says... It is said that when the Eorlingas came out of the north and passed at length up the Snowbourn, seeking strong places of refuge in time of need, Brego and his son Baldor climbed the stair of the hold and so came before the door. On the threshold sat an old man, aged beyond guess of years. Tall and kingly he had been, but now he was withered as an old stone. Indeed, for stone they took him, for he moved not, and he said no word until they sought to pass him by and enter. And then a voice came out of him, as it were out of the ground, and to their amaze it spoke in the western tongue, "The way is shut." Then they halted and looked at him, and saw that he lived still, but he did not look at them. "The way is shut," his voice said again. "It was made by those who are dead, and the dead keep it, until the time comes. The way is shut." "And when will that time be?" said Baldor, but no answer did he ever get. For the old man died in that hour and fell upon his face, and no other tidings of the ancient dwellers in the mountains have our folk ever learned. Yet maybe at last the time foretold has come, and Aragorn may pass. So, so there is a note of hope here from Theoden that maybe Aragorn is the one that will be able to open the way.
Right.
But let me go back and just make sure I understand this. So this is going back to, I guess, before Baldor's rash vow that he spoke, when he and his father Brego climbed the stair of the hold and came before the door, and that's where they met this old man.
Right. So they didn't actually go through at that point.
Right.
Is that right? They met him.
And he
came back.
Right.
And then went at a later date.
Yeah, and the old man said the way is shut.
Right.
And it surprised them. They're like, "How did you know our language?"
Right. Maybe they thought they were going to be the ones to open it then.
Mm-hmm.
Which they weren't.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just this mysterious man sitting there. And so, there's these ancient legends, and this, great warrior Baldor, all they know is that he never returned. Right? He spoke a rash vow and he never returned.
Right.
So.
And that's why you don't speak rash vows.
About the paths of the dead.
Right.
That's right.
Especially about the paths of the dead.
That's right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The end.
That's the moral of this chapter.
That's right.
Speak not rash vows.
You just picture like Rohirrim parents telling their children stories about, know, if you don't behave yourself, then I'm gonna send you up to the paths of the dead.
That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm gonna send you up to find Baldor in the paths of the dead.
I'm sure that would knock him into shape real quick.
Oh yeah.
Well, any kid with sense, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Any kid that's growing in chivalry
True.
would respond positively.
If they were going the opposite direction of chivalry, then yes. Then, this would get them set back on the path to chivalry.
Right. Yes. Exactly. That's what I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just clarifying for the benefit of the listeners.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as scary as the Paths of the Dead sound, I think the area, like just the description, as I picture this place in my mind's eye that they're in right now, on the on the edge of the Danharo, I just think it's like, that sounds beautiful, and I want to go hang out there for a while, like just in kind of this mountainish area.
Oh, like the valley,
yeah,
like the mountains in the valley. Yeah, we could just go to Switzerland and probably experience the same thing without dead people.
Yeah, when I went to Switzerland 20-something years ago, it was. That's what I remember it being like. I remember we stayed in this like bed and breakfast up in the mountains, and I remember at night it was completely surrounded by mountains, and at night you would go out and like it was just dark, and then like way up above there was like a little opening of moonlight or of like stars you could see, but everything else, but it would be like stars, and then it would just stop. It would just be total blackness. Whereas if you were like somewhere, if you were somewhere else that didn't have mountains all around it, you would see stars all the way to the horizon.
Right.
Anyway, just Tolkien again. Said it many times before. So good at making places sound appealing and beautiful and wonderful, and just wanting to go there.
Yeah, even though there are dead people trying to kill you.
I think Tolkien, it's a shame he wrote The Lord of the Rings, 'cause I think he missed his calling as a travel guide, like as a travel guide writer.
There's an idea. Travel guide to Middle Earth.
That's right. Traveler's Guide to Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It just sounds beautiful as I was reading this.
It does. No, it absolutely does.
As I was reading
anything
this,
in the
I would like
foothills
to go
of mountains is going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a cool picture. Let's see. I'm looking up Danharo on Tolkien Gateway, and that's a cool picture of like, it looks, it's a little more ordered than I kind of expected it to be, but this is a Ted Naismith drawing on here, and it's, you can see the stairs climbing up to it, and then the path, and then the camp over here.
Yep.
And that must be over to the Danharo where the Paths of the Dead begin. Anyway, I want to go to there. There you go.
Yeah. Maybe in your dreams.
Maybe in my dreams. All right. The Red Arrow. So, before too long, they hear that there's a commotion, and this rider has shown up from Gondor with the Red Arrow.
Right.
He sank to one knee and presented the arrow to Theoden. Hail, Lord of the Rohirrim, friend of Gondor. Hirgon I am, errand rider of Denethor, who bring you this token of war. Gondor is in great need. Often the Rohirrim have aided us, but now the Lord Denethor asks for all your strength and all your speed, lest Gondor fall at last. The Red Arrow, said Theoden, holding it, as one who receives a summons long expected and yet dreadful when it comes. His hand trembled. The Red Arrow has not been seen in the mark in all my years. Has it indeed come to that? And what does the Lord Denethor reckon that all my strength and all my speed may be? That is best known to you yourself, Lord, said Hirgon. But ere long it may well come to pass that Minas Tirith is surrounded, and unless you have the strength to break a siege of many powers, the Lord Denethor bids me say that he judges that the strong arms of the Rohirrim would be better within his walls than without. And Theoden said, to summarize all this conversation, Theoden basically says, look, we're going to get there as fast as we can, but I think we're still about a week out.
Right.
Yeah. And Hirgon is kind of like, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, maybe you'll disrupt their feasting.
Right.
The enemy's feasting in our tower.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah. They'll probably have taken Minas Tirith by then, and so the best you can do is hope to draw them out for a little skirmish,
Yeah.
But that does not sound good for us.
No. Not what we need.
Right. So, Theoden says, dark tidings, yet not all unguessed, but say to Denethor that even if Rohan itself felt no peril, still we would come to his aid. But we have suffered much loss in our battles with Sauron the traitor, and we must still think of our frontier to the north and east, as his own tidings make clear. So great a power as the Dark Lord seems now to wield might well contain us in battle before the city, and yet strike with great force across the river away beyond the Gate of Kings. So they're going to ride to Rohan.
Yep.
and they're going to ride as quickly as they can, but,
Right.
you know, it's
going to take them a while to get ready.
It's going to
and
take them a
move
while
and, yeah.
to get moving. And it's in all of this that Mary realizes that it's not Theoden's plan to bring him along. And Mary isn't very happy about this.
Nope.
He says, I won't be left behind to be called for on return. I won't be left. I won't. He goes to his tent and sleeps, and he rises the next day he arises in the middle of the night, and someone comes to his tent and wakens him. And a cloud has come from Mordor and spreading over the land to the effect that they don't think that they'll be seeing the sun anytime soon. War has already begun. So, Theoden, his little speech here. So we come to it in the end, the great battle of our time in which many things shall pass away. But at last there is no longer need for hiding. We will ride the straight way and the open road, and with all our speed. The muster shall begin at once, and wait for none that tarry. Have you good store in Minas Tirith? For if we must ride now in all haste, then we must ride light, with but meal and water enough to last us into battle. We have very great store long prepared, answered Hirgon. Ride now as light and as swift as you may. Then call the heralds, Eomer, said Theoden. Let the riders be marshalled. Eomer went out, and presently the trumpets rang in the hold and were answered by many others from below. But their voices no longer sounded clear and brave as they had seemed to Mary the night before. Dull they seemed and harsh in the heavy air, braying ominously.
So, they're basically, this cloud of Mordor, or is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
That's starting to overshadow everything.
Yeah.
Is this is the reason that Theoden has decided to quicken his pace?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you know, he basically says, like, does Gondor have enough food and water for all of us once we arrive?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay, then we don't have to carry as much food and water, so we can ride a little quicker.
Right.
And part of the decision to leave Mary behind is they just don't think he's going to be a burden, right? He's going to slow them down in Theoden's mind, right?
So that's interesting. I didn't get so much. I didn't read it that way per se. I didn't think that maybe he would be a burden. I guess I can see that it's probably part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that it was more of a concern for his safety.
Well, I think that's part of it too, but I think it's both, right? You know,
Okay.
because if we're going to take care of him, then he's going to be, it's kind of like taking a kid to battle, right?
He can't ride a big, fast horse like everybody else.
Right.
He's only going to ride that little pony, which doesn't go as fast.
Right.
And plus, they don't have the armor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he's not accustomed to fighting on horseback like they are.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, he says, I'll just hang on to a stirrup if I have to.
Right. I know. Sweet Mary. And then I love this where he said, then tie me on the back of one horse, or let me hang on a stirrup or something, said Mary. It is a long way to run, but run I shall if I cannot ride, even if I wear my feet off and arrive weeks too late.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to go bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, basically, he's willing to run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's pretty dead set on not being left.
That's right. And he's told that he'll stay here and serve Éowyn.
Yeah.
But Éowyn, of course, takes pity on him. She says, I will show you the gear that I have prepared for you. This request only did Aragorn make to me, said Éowyn as they passed among the tents, that you should be armed for battle. I have granted it as I could, for my heart tells me that you will need such gear ere the end. And
So basically Theoden agrees to let him ride on his horse. That's why they're fitting him for battle.
no, I don't think, is that right?
Yeah, he says, rather than that I would bear you with, he said, after Mary says I'll run if I have to, Theoden smiled, rather than that I would bear you with me on Snowmane, he said, but at the least you shall ride with me to Edoras and look on Meadows.
Yeah, so he
agrees to take him part of the way.
Well, to
on
Edoras.
his horse.
To Edoras.
Yeah.
But not all the way
Not
to
all the way.
Gondor.
No, but he's not going to leave him here with Éowyn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, what's in Edoras?
Edoras is that's the capital of Rohan.
I understand it's the capital, but why would he take him to Edoras?
Because that's the way they're going. They have to come out of the Dunharrow to Edoras, and then they go east to Gondor.
But is anybody else in Edoras?
Well, no, but they're all going. The muster is happening. I believe the muster is happening near Edoras,
I
right?
see. So
or if it's not happening there, he's just saying that's where I'm going to drop you off, right?
Okay, but I guess I just don't understand. I mean, is that just? Yeah, obviously that's not where the battle's going to happen.
Right.
Right? That's not really what Mary wants.
Right.
But is it just kind of, he just does this to appease Mary? I guess I'm just wondering what's even the good of him going to Edoras? There's not going to be anything for him to do there.
Because others are going back to Edoras, right?
I see. Okay. Is
Yeah.
Eowyn too?
Yeah.
Oh, they're all leaving their safe hold, their safe place.
I think
And
so.
going
Yeah.
back
I mean, I
to
think
the
that's
city.
that's the way I understand
I
it.
see. Okay. Gotcha. So they're leaving their mountain, what's it called?
Stronghold.
Yeah, stronghold. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see.
So Eowyn fits him for battle, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gives him like a little helmet and shield and...
Yeah, we have this little bit here where it says, a young man, Mary thought as he returned the glance, less in height and girth than most. But when they had come to the end of the line, one looked up, glancing keenly at the hobbit. A young man, Mary thought as he returned the glance, less in height and girth than most. He caught the glint of clear gray eyes, and then he shivered, for it came suddenly to him that was the face of one without hope, who goes in search of death. So there's this, particular rider who's smaller than the rest, who seems to be focused intently on Mary.
Right.
And now, it turns out this is Dernhelm, who he meets later and agrees to take Mary. Because Dernhelm is not as large, so the horse, in theory, can bear them both. Right? But for a normal rider, they probably together weigh about what a normal rider would weigh. Right? So that's okay. So Mary is going to get to go after all.
Now, this is without Theoden's permission.
Right.
Theoden doesn't know this is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Let's read this poem.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and read it. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. And again, this poem is this is actually what Tolkien says is that this is a poem that was sung in the years to come, right? As in memory of the writers of the men who wrote out for this battle.
Right. So this is like a glimpse into the future.
Right. This is a song of what's to come.
This is not being sung
Right.
as they're riding.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like a memorial.
Yeah, it says, on down the grey road they went beside the snowbourn, rushing on its stones, through the hamlets of Underharrow and Upbourne, where many sad faces of women looked out from dark doors, and so without horn or harp or music of men's voices, the great ride into the east began, with which the songs of Rohan were busy for many long lives of men thereafter. From dark Dunharrow in the dim morning, with Thane and Captain rode Thingol's son. To Edoras he came, the ancient halls of the Mark Wardens mist enshrouded. Golden timbers were in gloom mantled. Farewell he bade to his free people, hearth and high seat, and the hallowed places, where long he had feasted ere the light faded. Forth rode the king, fear behind him, fate before him. Fealty kept he, oaths he had taken, all fulfilled them. Forth rode Theoden. 5 nights and days east and onward rode the Aerlingus through Fold and Fenmarch and the Furian wood. 6,000 spears to Sunlending, Mundburg the mighty under Mendoluin. Sea King City in the South Kingdom, foe beleaguered, fire encircled. Doom drove them on, darkness took them. Horse and horseman, hoofbeats afar, sank into silence. So the song tells us. So, pretty beautiful poem. A lot of alliteration.
Yes.
Whole lot of alliteration, which is very befitting a poem of this style and of Tolkien's and of for this subject. So, but some interesting notes. It's obviously a tribute to Theoden, to Thingol's son, keeping his oaths. Fealty kept he, oaths he had taken, all fulfilled them. And 5 nights and days east and onward rode the Aerlingus through Fold and Fenmarch and the Furian wood. 6,000 spears. So there's 6,000 men going to Gondor, and it's going to take them 5 days to arrive. And we hear also and I'm not sure. The Sea King City in the South Kingdom, foe beleaguered, 5 encircled. Oh, okay, that is referring to Minas Tirith. Because the Sea King City, who are the Sea Kings, they're the Númenóreans.
Oh, yeah.
And the South Kingdom would be Gondor, as opposed to Arnor, the North Kingdom.
Right.
So, Tolkien, awesome poem. Eventually we'll get to that one and do a more in-depth discussion of it within on our Patreon videos.
Sounds good.
But yeah, so Merry riding with Darrenhelm.
Under his cloak.
That's right, under Darrenhelm's cloak. Darrenhelm says, "Then you shall go with me. I will bear you before me under my cloak until we are far afield, and this darkness is yet darker. Such goodwill should not be denied. Say no more to any man, but come." "Thank you indeed. Thank you, sir, though I do not know your name." "Do you not?" said the rider softly. "They call me Darrenhelm." At least it's not Durndingle, right?
It's not Durndingle.
Right, Greta?
Yep. Darrenhelm.
Darrenhelm. So it says, and as they rode, rumor came of war in the north. Lone men, riding wild, brought word of foes assailing their east borders, or of Orcos marching in the wold of Rohan. Ride on, cried Eomer. Too late now to turn aside. The fens of Entwash must guard our flank. Haste now we need. Ride on. And so King Theodore departed from his own realm, and mile by mile the long road wound away. And the beacon hills marched past. Calenhad, Menrimon, Aerolis, Nardol, but their fires were quenched. All the lands were grey and still, and ever the shadow deepened before them, and hope waned in every heart. So, even as they're
gloomy end to the chapter.
Even as they're riding, they hear about that Rohan itself is coming under assault, right, from the east. So, but they basically say, like, it's too late to worry about that. We have to keep riding. Now, they're leaving some men behind to defend Rohan, right?
Right.
So Theoden makes the point that he could muster 10,000 if he absolutely needed to, but he can't leave his own land unguarded. Right. So he's leaving behind 4,000. So they ride with 6,000 men.
Right.
To Minas Tirith.
Right.
And yeah, that's the end of the chapter.
All right.
Any other thoughts? Anything I missed, Greta?
No. I think that was a very thoughtful and
thorough discussion.
Thorough discussion, indeed. Yes.
Very well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
now I think it's time for haiku. Indeed.
Yep.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Haiku. Woo-hoo. Alright, let's do this. Who's going first?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh yeah. Where's my bookmark?
Is that it?
Nope, that's yours.
Well, you can use that one if you want.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I'll probably find it eventually. Okay, here we go. Ready?
Probably sitting on it.
I probably am sitting on it. No, maybe not.
All right.
Anyway.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You win.
I go first.
All right.
Okay. Here is my haiku. Hasty they must be, says the red arrow. Mary rides on in disguise.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is a time for haste.
This is a time for haste.
Even Treebeard, I think, would agree that it was okay to be hasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too hasty, but hasty.
So, question: we didn't really. I know we mentioned the red arrow,
Mm-hmm.
but do we know? Like, I know it was something that Theoden had never seen. I mean, he knew of it, but he had never seen it before. Is there do we know anything else about the red arrow? Like where it came from, why it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, again, Tolkien Gateway, looking at the Red Arrow, it says, first mention of the Red Arrow is when Borondir of Gondor and 5 other messengers rode north along Anduin to seek out Gondor's old allies, the Eothid, when Gondor was being overrun by Easterlings in the Third Age 2509. Borondir was the only survivor and presented the Red Arrow to the Eothid king, Eorl the Young. And I guess that's the last time it came. It is not certain where the Red Arrow came from. It is possible that the tradition was an old one and that Gondor had always summoned its allies this way. But another possibility is that Borondir actually took an orc arrow with a bloody tip to present it to the Eothid to prove that the situation was as bad as his message stated.
Okay. So that's what I thought, just in its description. I thought this sounds like an orc arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, it's a sign of dire need.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, good question.
Thanks.
All right, can I read mine now?
Yes, I guess.
All right, I will.
Do it.
For weary riders, no rest. A red arrow summons gale to tempest.
Ooh, gale to tempest.
Mm-hmm.
I like that symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. Real good, Johnny.
Right on, thank you.
You're welcome.
What else we got?
All right, so, haiku. Haiku. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, we have one from Superfan. We have two from Superfan Mary Grace.
All right, Mary Grace,
Mary
what's up?
Grace. Here's her first one. Dark tidings are brought by the Red Arrow. Gondor's final call for aid. Wow. We've had 3 haiku now in a row that reference the Red Arrow.
The red arrow is kind of a stark
Kind of
symbol in this chapter.
It is, yeah. It's memorable.
All right, here's Mary Grace's second haiku. At last we come to it, the great battle of our time. Fourth, Aerolingus.
Nice. Aerolingus. I like that.
Yeah, I think she basically just took what Theodore said there and turned it into a haiku. So good recognition of already existing haiku.
You know, it's funny how often that has happened.
I know.
Like, I know I've taken several directly from the book, and I know that someone sent one in, Al Taylor sent one in, courtesy of Gandalf.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yep. So we have another haiku from, actually, I think there's 2 haiku. Yes, there are 2. From Gregory Simonson.
Right on.
Here we go. Here's Greg's first one. Riders of Rohan, Vikings of the plain, ride now to Gondor.
Awesome.
Really good.
Good job, Greg.
Well done. Here's his second one.
Hobbitla also left. Useless are we, think they? Come, ride for glory and death.
Awesome. So
Right
we didn't
on.
talk about that. That whole, how do you say it?
Hobbitla?
Hobbitla.
Yeah.
That's what the man that awakens
Yeah.
Mary calls him.
That's what the Rohirrim refer to them as.
Have we
Yeah.
come across that word before?
Yeah, it shows up several times in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
I think that's, because the Rohirrim, men had known of hobbits, right? The Rohirrim had heard of hobbits before, but they'd never seen them before. So they were like these legendary people that lived to the north. Again, I'll reference Tolkien Gateway. It says, Hobbitla means hole builder, the legendary creatures known among the Northmen and the Rohirrim. The legend originated perhaps from the time when their ancestors, the Eothed, saw and knew the hobbits from the vales of Anduin before or around their wandering days. From Hobbitla, the word hobbit in Westron was derived. So Hobbitla is actually where the name hobbit came from.
Oh, okay.
Hole builder. Interesting note.
That is. Hole
Yeah.
builder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hobbit holes. Seems appropriate.
Mm-hmm. But that's how they, originally they had a very different name, right? For the Numenorians, they were the Perianath, right?
Oh, that's right.
We read about concerning hobbits at the very beginning.
That's right, yep.
And they all had kind of like different, there were different branches of them. But these other men, these non-Gondorian men, came across them and called them hole builders because they built holes to live in, right? In a hole in the ground there lived the hobbit.
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
So, Hobbitla. Yeah, so that's where the name, I guess that's where the term hobbit came from. Again, just crazy verisimilitude in Tolkien's works. There you go.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Haiku. More haiku. So we have a couple from Matt
Nice.
Scarrance. Here's his first one. From battle to war, from Gondor, beleaguered land, the Red Arrow comes. Shout out to the Red Arrow.
Yeah.
Red Arrow. Yes.
Whoa.
Ah! Cancel. There you go. All right. Good job, Matt. Here's your second one.
Forth now, Aerolingus, to aid Mundburg the mighty, as went Eorl of old. Nice.
Really
Awesome.
good. Really,
Fourth
really,
now,
really good.
Aerolingos. People, that's a memorable line.
Fourth now, Aerolingus.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Matt. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I love our listeners.
Yep.
They're so terrific. So we have an email from Josh.
Right on.
Superfan Josh.
Superfan Josh.
And I think Josh, he may have outdone himself.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. So he sent us 2 haiku. The first one is in English, which I will read.
Okay.
The second one is in Latin, which you will read.
Very well.
Because I will most likely butcher it. So here's his first one. Off to war the Aerolingus ride, and Mary in good hands follows.
Nice.
It's like an Allstate commercial haiku. In good hands. Good hands with Allstate. Anyway, good job.
I'm sure that's what Josh intended.
I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely positive.
All right, here we go. Ooh, iacta sagita est, auxilio alba turis vocabit.
That was pretty good, Johnny.
Awesome. I think that's supposed to be iacta. Iacta. I can't tell because it's an I. If it's an uppercase I or a lowercase L, but I assume in Latin there is no J, so an I is used in its stead and is pronounced like the consonant ya. So iacta. Okay, I got it right.
Good job.
So the translation of that is, "Let the arrow be cast. The white tower has called for aid." Awesome.
That's really, really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
He took inspiration from "The die has been cast," spoken by Julius Caesar
by
upon
Julius.
crossing the Rubicon.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Really, really good. Putting us all to shame, Josh.
Yes.
You should do best.
As usual.
That was really good, though.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel smarter after reading an email from Josh. Thank you for sharing. Now, we also have a couple of, we have a couple from last chapter.
Cool.
That got sent in. And this is actually really funny. So we have a note from Amanda.
Uh-huh.
Amanda Kaiser. And she sent in an email for our last episode, like in time. But then she was listening to our episode and we didn't read her haiku. And she's like, what? I thought I sent in a haiku. Why did they not read my haiku? Is it John doing correspondence again? What's going on? And so she sends us this note, and what happened was she did send haiku, but not to us. It went to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And she says that the person she sent it to never responded. Yeah. And that awkward conversation will happen at some point.
Right.
So, that seriously made me laugh out loud.
Why did you send me a random haiku about a chapter from Tolkien?
All right, nerd. Anyway, so here's the email she meant to send us in time for last week's discussion.
Let's hear it.
Or a couple weeks ago. Anyway, good morning. And although I didn't say it a couple weeks ago, I hope you enjoyed your couple of weeks off and welcome back. I hope I'm not too late with this email, but if so, that's okay. I have loved both this chapter. So she's talking about the passing of the Grey Company. Mm-hmm. I have loved both this chapter as well as the previous. I love how rich the chapters are with history and depth. I also love following their stories more than the stories of Frodo and Sam. Yeah, I know. Anyways, I really loved looking at the comparisons of the three kings. Theoden, Denethor, steward who wants to be king, and Aragorn, the king to be, as well as the comparison between Denethor and Gandalf. All around great chapters. Mm-hmm. So here are her haikus for this past chapter. I'll read the first one. Brothers, old and new, Dunedain and Oathbreakers, to the hill of Eric.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff. All right, here's Amanda's second one.
Theoden grateful, Denethor calculating, Aragorn humble. Awesome.
Really good. Yeah,
Nice
I like that
juxtaposition.
comparison too. Yes, juxtaposition. Good stuff. We have one other one too from last chapter from Matt. He said, here's a haiku that might make up for missing last episode. I'll let you read this one.
Okay. Treasure in the dark, Aragorn. This is not the door you're looking for.
Not the door. Move on.
Not the door you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is an allusion to...
Star Wars.
Yes.
That was totally a shot in the dark.
Do you know the line?
What do you think?
This is not the droid you're looking for.
Oh, is it talking about R2-D2?
Yeah.
Ah, I
Yeah,
love
when-
R2-D2.
When Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars says the stormtroopers come up to them and Obi-Wan plays a Jedi mind trick on them and says, "This is not the droid you're looking for."
Oh, what? Which one is that in?
It's in the original.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The first one.
Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you guys for all those haikus.
Most
Y'all
definitely.
are rock stars. We have a few other notes I wanted to share real quick.
Okay.
We have one from a new listener,
Right on.
Tyson Kingsbury.
Tyson. What's up?
Tyson. Yes. Hello, Tyson. He sent us a note on Facebook, and he says, I just finished reading the series again and was looking for a podcast about it and stumbled upon yours. So glad I did. Thus far, I've just been hopping here and there, sampling various episodes. Just finished the last one for book 1 this morning. Anyhow, I just want to drop a quick line to let you both know how much I'm enjoying the episodes. You guys are like the Mulder and Scully of Lord of the Rings. The chemistry you both have is infectious, and you both have some great insights into the books. Can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this. Thanks so much for all the amazing work. Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank
very
you
much.
so much. Although I had to ask John who Mulder and Scully were.
Yeah, which I knew.
Yeah, which you knew.
Yeah.
And once you told me, I was like, oh yeah, it's totally a compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The X-Files. They're the X-Files people,
Right.
for those who don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tyson. Really, we love hearing from everybody.
Absolutely. It's
So-
awesome to hear from you, Tyson.
Yes, absolutely. Keep in touch, please. We also have a couple notes from David Bigwood. He wrote in, and he's a little behind, he said. He just finished the episode of Minas Tirith, but he wanted to, I guess we had talked about chestnuts. About whether or not chestnuts are actually edible. Right?
You had that question a
I
few
did
weeks
have
ago,
that.
yeah.
Because I know we talked about the Christmas Carol, right?
Mhm.
Chestnuts roasting on open fire. But David wrote in, and he says that long ago, in the days of his youth in Boston, you could buy roasted chestnuts in the fall and winter from street carts. A bag of warm chestnuts was great for warming chilled hands. The nut is soft like a macadamia, but I think more tasty. Some of my friends' families had chestnut dressing for Thanksgiving. So, there we go.
Right on.
Chestnuts are edible and delicious.
I want to try some now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I'm not saying, it got to be right
Maybe
now. I'm
this
just saying,
winter.
yeah.
Maybe I'll make a chestnut stuffing.
I guess we got to check them to see if they're peanut allergy
Oh,
safe.
yeah. I
too.
wonder if they're actual nuts.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing
Yeah.
to figure out.
Mhm.
Also, David wrote another nice note just with lots of thoughts he wanted to share about Tolkien.
Is this one?
Yeah.
I can speak a little bit to this
Okay,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, David wrote a longish note, and it was really cool. So David, thank you, and he just shares a lot of thoughts, kind of getting caught up, and he shares his own thoughts on the Two Towers film, which I think he kind of feels about it like we generally did.
Mm-hmm.
He says I've not watched them since I saw the extended versions. He says so much is perfect: the scenery, costumes, buildings. A snapshot taken any time is just right. But then Gimli is made a buffoon, Treebeard a moron, Faramir a copy of his brother, and the whole focus of the films is off. In the books, the battles take a few chapters out of 40 or so. The battles seem to occupy about half the time of the films. I've been going back to older episodes, and then he talks about he talks about just kind of what we said early on about Tolkien selling 20 million copies in reply to his critics. That he was just this hugely best-selling author. And David makes the point, because David makes the point in this note that, David's been reading Tolkien since the 60s.
Yeah.
Right? So he's been a big fan of Tolkien since the 60s. So back in the day, Tolkien wasn't necessarily a hugely best-selling author. He sold well, but was not on the New York Times bestseller list. He wrote that forward because an unauthorized paperback edition had come out. In order to get copyright on a new edition, he needed some more content. So I'm guessing there was something we may have said back when we first started Lord of the Rings that was maybe not 100% accurate.
Okay.
So David's probably helping to try to correct the record a little bit.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that point of our expertise, I don't know that I'll ever, and we've talked about this some before, I do not consider myself a Tolkien expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this podcast out of love for Tolkien, and I want to become more knowledgeable of Tolkien things, but I don't. I know there are people out there who are true Tolkien experts, and it's clear to me that David has a lot more knowledge, and even David says he doesn't consider himself an expert. There are people out there that he feels like have much more knowledge than him.
The depth of
well, exactly. But David
world.
has read a lot, and he mentions reading most of the issues of Parma, Eldar, Lamaran, and Vinya Tengar that have his essays on his invented languages. He says, I first read The Lord of the Rings in late 68 or 69 during the school year. I have fanzines and journals from the late 70s. I'm not new to Tolkien. He says, yours is the podcast I listen to. There are some other ones that may be more expert than you, but you, Greta and John, make me feel like I'm sitting having a conversation, not being lectured to or talked at. I do listen to the others occasionally, but the Tolkien Road is the one I have set to download automatically on my podcatcher. Thanks. That again, that's awesome
really
to
high
hear.
Praise. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
I do not harbor any doubts that there's folks out there who could maybe learn you more when it comes to Tolkien things.
Yeah.
But we just have a different emphasis over here.
Right.
Our emphasis is on the enjoyment, A, and B, on and part of that's the mutual enjoyment that we enjoy, that we're enjoying it together.
Right.
People who love Tolkien and his deep appreciation for him, but also just kind of like not what's going on deep academically, but what's going on deep kind of like spiritually and emotionally. Like why do these things resonate with so many people? Those are the big questions that intrigue me about Tolkien.
Yep.
It's not necessarily how this word derives from this word, although that stuff can be interesting. But it's more of like, what is it about these works that just makes them so incredible? And what is it about the man that wrote these works
really
that
just scratched the surface?
Makes him that makes his view of things so attractive,
Yeah.
Anyway, David, thank you, David. Awesome note for dropping us a line, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. Yes. And we have one more new listener note.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is so great. So great. So this is from Matt B. He left us a note on True Myths.
Right.
And he says he's just on, it sounds like he just finished listening to episode 5, which was the Silmarillion episode of Aule and Yavanna.
Uh-huh.
And he says, just got into this episode at work, like all the others before. It is incredible. I was looking for the art of Aule when I decided to explore your site. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
Awesome.
So great. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
You guys are seriously the bomb. You're the reason we do what we do.
That's right.
The reason we keep doing it.
That's right.
Yep.
A big one. So.
Indeed. I wanted to say real quick too that Matt, I think I'm gonna send this to Josh if he can maybe tweet it out. But he shared a really cool, a link to a really cool picture by Russian artist Sergei. I'm just going to say Sergei because I don't want to butcher his last name. He's a Russian guy. A Russian artist.
Sergei Yukimov.
Okay.
Looks like.
That works. And he shared a link to Sergei's depiction of the Paths of the Dead. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty cool looking. I don't know if it's what I kind of pictured in my head or what you pictured in your head, but it's really interesting.
Oh, the Paths of the Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to tweet that to Josh and see if he could tweet it out. I'm not going to tweet it to Josh. I don't know how to tweet. But I'm going to send it to Josh and ask if he could tweet it out.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool. Since we talked quite a bit about the Paths of the Dead in this episode. So
yeah, most
Thank
definitely.
you for sharing that, Matt.
Yes,
really
indeed.
Appreciate it. And, yeah. I think that's a wrap.
Right on.
Yeah. I guess our next episode is going to be on the next chapter.
Yes, next episode is on Book 5, Chapter 4, The Siege of Gondor. And we'll be recording.
Exciting.
Yeah, so get your haiku in. Try to have them in by, let's see, Wednesday, which is, what is Wednesday?
9th.
The 9th, right? Yeah. So, yeah, try to have them in before the 9th. And we will look forward to talking to you next time.
Absolutely.
Thanks to all of our patrons. Y'all rock. We've got our executive producers, William Hutton and Justine Lloyd, as well as our other patrons, Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, Brian Orr, Margaret Lyon, Emilio Perea, Zeke Farmer, Caleb Santana, James Applegate, Caitlin Fascista, Matt Scarrance, Al Taylor, Per Brenner, James Lindberg, Chris Loftus, and last but not least, Lawrence McGowan.
Y'all
We
rock.
appreciate all of y'all,
Big time.
and we appreciate everybody who's listening as well.
Indeed. We really appreciate y'all being in touch and sending us such kind notes and awesome haiku. And this makes our job so fun.
Indeed. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We will talk at you next time.
We will. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org and tolkienroad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes, and consider supporting us financially via patreon.com/tolkienroad. On our next episode, we'll continue our journey through The Lord of the Rings with Book 5, Chapter 4, The Siege of Gondor. Please send haiku or other correspondence to tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.